Hello and welcome to Watson Premier League new season 23-24. I was missing you, Tom Rennie. How were your holidays? All good?
Yeah, they were very, very nice. I had some lovely time in Washington, D.C., in New York City, and I didn't get to meet the president, though, sadly. I tried my best, but they said he had better things to do.
Next time, probably if he met you, he had already forgotten you.
That's it.
Due to his memory, obviously. So thanks everyone to be back. My favorite show is back. Peter is saying everyone is very happy to see Tom Rennie again with us. So let's not waste any time. I'm looking forward to analyzing West Ham summer market, for instance, if there was a summer market for West Ham at all with Tom Rennie. So remember, guys, to leave your comments and don't forget, press the like and subscribe. And now let's go on with the show. And we have big news, Tom, in this new season because we've partnered with 1xBet. So now we can offer a brand new welcome bonus up to 130%. So you can get $520 or euros. You can check the promo code in the description, Oddspedia YouTube, with a link. You can read it here. So big news if you want to bet in the Premier League. And I'm sure Tom has so many good tips, starting with Burnley, Man City. I'm sure we are not going to change the strategy from last season, betting on Man City to win, but it's going to be interesting, I think, for the opening game, seeing Kompany as a manager facing Man City. I guess, Tom, you think this Man City is even stronger with the additions of Vardiol and Kovacic, or they lost something with Gundogan leaving?
It's an interesting one. I'm not sure stronger is the right word because the Ilkay Gundogan in that April to May stretch every single season turns into prime Lionel Messi, as we know. He does it every year. It's been pivotal to what City have been able to achieve, certainly the last couple of seasons. So it's a massive loss, a huge loss, though, as we are doing this program, Barcelona can't sign him, so he might be back next week for all we know. I'm not a big fan of Mateo Kovacic, I've got to say. I don't think that's an improvement at all in that position. You can see why there are reports today that people like Lucas Paquetá and one or two others are potentially being linked as a more creative force in that midfield because Mateo Kovacic, he's been around for a long time. And frankly, when he left Chelsea, there weren't too many people that disappointed that he was going. So that was interesting. I do think Guardiola is a terrific centre-half, but you've already got Laporte and Diaz and Stones and Ake and Akanji. That's crazy depth. So I'm assuming someone's going to get sold somewhere down the line for that transfer to have happened. So it's as you were, really. They're the strongest squad in the country. They're the strongest squad in Europe, the European champions. And I think they'll be champions again this season. It's a very, very safe bet. And as you'll see across 38 weeks of this season, dear viewer, I will be betting on Man City to win pretty much every week in various ways. And I'm not going to change that here. No particular injury news of note going into this one. Kevin De Bruyne is fit. Erling Haaland is fit. All the stars you'd expect for City are fit going into this game. So go City win big. And I'll tell you my top tip for that in a moment. As for Burnley, really interested to see them because if you saw any championship last season, some of you may have done, the football was terrific. Really, really good. They were great at holding possession when teams were low blocking against them. They were great at counter-attacking, counter-pressing. They were pressing high up the field. And they are a bit Guardiola-y in the way they play. They're a typical student of Guardiola in that Vincent Kompany is their manager. The issue is, as it always is when teams come to the Premier League, is there anywhere near enough quality in this Burnley squad to stay in the Premier League? And that is the battle, by the way. It's not a conversation here about, oh, look, Vincent Kompany has got a great squad. They're going to finish mid-table. This Burnley team will need to scrap and fight for 35 points. They're going to have to. I look across the squad and I'm not seeing a great deal of top-level quality. Maybe a few of these guys will step into that role, but there's a few old campaigners, Charlie Taylor, Jack Cork, Johan Berg Goodmanson, Josh Brownhill, Jay Rodriguez. A lot of the old faces are there. And there's some people like Nathan Redmond, who's a multiple Premier League flop. So at the moment, I don't have great faith in Burnley staying in the Premier League. And certainly in this game, I would not have faith in them winning it. So go City win. Best I've found is 3-0. Don't usually go for exact scores, but 3-0 is 8-1. If you go over 2.5 goals, you can get it around 2.5, 2.1. But this is your handicap game. Go -1, go maybe even -2. The top tip for me is 3-0 Man City, around 8s, maybe 10s. It's a bit bold, but if you are going to make money on Man City this season, you've got to go against the golden rule, which is don't bet on exact scores, because really, you don't make much money on any Man City scores. And also, this week, as every week, look at the Haaland hat-trick market. You only normally get that around 6 or 7-1, which is mad, but he's certainly going to do it a few times this season, so look at it.
Man City 3-0 is odds are around 9. I guess the big question mark with Man City if they are keeping the hunger after winning absolutely everything. That's the hardest part, I guess, for Guardiola to motivate his team. And the current runner-up and winner of a trophy already, the Community Shield, is Arsenal playing on Saturday, the early kickoff against Nottingham Forest. I guess we can agree that this Arsenal is actually stronger than the one we saw last season, but they have to play Champions League, and this is massive for a club like Arsenal. Declan Rice, Havertz joining Arteta's squad and facing Nottingham Forest again in the Premier League, always with Steve Cooper, and some big signings, at least for the names, Tom, with Elanga or Chris Wood.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with Arsenal. They won the Community Shield, but in years gone by, when we didn't add on 700 minutes at the end of a football match, they would have lost it. So I don't think they will take too much from it. They competed. It was a decent enough performance, but, it was a friendly win against a Man City side who, as usual, don't care about the Community Shield to such a degree they played Cole Palmer. Who is Cole Palmer? Answers on a postcard if this was 1983. I like the Arsenal business. I think Declan Rice is world-class. I really do. I think he's up there with Rodri in that position in the league. Great recovery runner, taking the ball off players, running past that defence. He carries the ball forward. He can score a goal. Great in the tackle, reads the game well, passes well. A massive upgrade on Partey and Xhaka, who were star performers last season for Arsenal. So that's a really good signing. Also like Timber at fullback / auxiliary midfielder as well during games. Kai Havertz, take it or leave it, really. I mean, talented, sure. But again, I always say this of Kai Havertz. He looks like someone who could walk down the street and be talking to you, then be distracted by a butterfly. And we've lost him for 5 minutes. So that's your issue with Kai Havertz. Plus, where are they going to play him? He played up front on Sunday, just gone. That's where Gabriel Jesus is supposed to play, of course. Injured again. And the backups, Balogun and Nketiah, you don't win the league with Nketiah and Balogun as your strikers. That all being said, they will win this game handsomely against Nottingham Forest, who only won one game away from home last season. It's tough to get a fix on Forest at the moment because last year, of course, they made so many signings. This year, they haven't made many in particular. Matt Turner coming in as number one goalkeeper. That's really interesting. The USA goalkeeper deserves a chance, I think, off the back of his performances for the US in the Gold Cup, but I'm not sure if he's a Premier League quality number one. We'll find out. Elanga, only Ralph Rangnick thinks he's any good. So we'll have to find out whether he actually is a good player or not. And Chris Wood was there anyway. So it's kind of as you were back end of last season, Forest. I like Morgan Gibbs-White and one or two others, but I think it's going to be another long season for Nottingham Forest and a long afternoon here as well. Arsenal win in various ways. Forest were the lowest scorers, I think, of the teams that have stayed up in the Premier League last season to this season. So Arsenal win without conceding doubles your money at around about 2-1, 2.1, 2.2 if you do fractions as I prefer. But you can also get Arsenal to win 5-0. 5-0 is around 20-1. So if you give them a -3 or -4 handicap, I still think Arsenal are going to win this game. So you could make a nice 20-1 profit on a bold bet here. But to be safe, Arsenal win without conceding, double your money.
These two bets seem like a safe bet, Arsenal and Man City to win. Let's focus on the games we have at 4 p.m. Bournemouth, West Ham is the first one. Last season, both were fighting against relegation, and we have to ask, of course, Tom's opinion about the market, if West Ham is going to be any better this season, or actually they are going to be worse after losing Rice, Scamacca, Blasic, for instance. They got Maguire, and Bournemouth with a new manager, Andoni Iraola. He did a great job in Spain with Rayo Vallecano, but England is a different thing, of course.
Yeah, I mean, starting with Bournemouth, I think we're all quite surprised, in England at least, that Gary O'Neill got the sack. Of course, he's now Wolverhampton Wanderers manager because he took a pretty ragtag group of players back in August last season and got them up in the Premier League with relative safety. So that was a surprise. And I don't see a great deal of improvement in the squad as yet from last season. The players that they have brought in, a bit of a miscellaneous ragtag group. Roman Favre from Lyon, maybe the most notable of the players that have come in. But in general, it's still, I'm not sure, a Premier League quality defence in Lloyd Kelly and Marcos Senesi. Neto in goal, he's captain, but not sure he's right up there with the top Premier League goalkeepers. Billing and Solanke had some good moments last season, but have they been improved upon? I don't know. So it's all down to the coach, right? Gary O'Neill certainly was an attacking coach, but he knew how to win Premier League games. And by that, I mean he would go defensive when it was important. He'd grind out results. I don't know Iraola to the degree that you will, and our friend Alvaro Romeo will from our La Liga previews. But from what I'm told, there'll be a bit more pressing, there'll be more expanse, there'll be more trying to win the game from the outset as opposed to get through the first 20 to 30 minutes. That's great. Unless you're 2-0 down in 20 minutes, then good luck to you. And I think this might be one of those games for Bournemouth. They lost this, I think, 4-0 last season. Could have been worse. Look, West Ham, to lose Declan Rice is catastrophic. It really is a terrible, terrible sale for West Ham from a football perspective. But if you look at James Ward-Prowse, who's come in, won't be playing this weekend, I don't think. Edson Alvarez, who should be announced while we're doing this program on Thursday morning, and Harry Maguire. I don't think that's a bad trio of players for less money than it took to sell Declan Rice. They've still got a profit on that. So I actually think they've not done bad business as it goes this week. They have been kicked into it. They should have done a lot of this 2 or 3 weeks ago, which is why these players might not be playing in this game. But I think they've done okay there. I still think West Ham are going to be short up front because Scamacca, he was utterly useless and they did really well to get their money back. But again, West Ham go back into that market of needing someone who's like Antonio. They've got to buy someone like Antonio to play up front because Antonio is now 34 years of age, never was a striker. So that's going to be interesting over the next few weeks. In this game, I would avoid Bournemouth because I'm just not at the moment impressed by the squad, and I don't know personally enough about what Iraola could have done to this team in the couple of months he's been in charge. There have been no competitive games to base my view on. And West Ham, I think, are better in every single position, even without Declan Rice. I still think West Ham should win this game. So I'm reasonably confident. I think it'll be quite low scoring. I don't see the 4-0 of last year, which effectively kept West Ham up. So go West Ham, low scoring. You can get this under 2.5 goals in the match for around 5.5. I'd be looking at that. Low scoring West Ham win.
Well, Harry or Shimi are going for a draw, and actually the odds are very similar for both ends, for Bournemouth or West Ham, so that leads us to a draw, but James is going, I think, for Hammers. Next game, Brighton, Luton Town. We have a new team in the Premier League. We've all seen their stadium. They are going to play away this game against Brighton. Let's see if this Brighton is as good as they were last season, still with the Serbi, still trying to play well. This is a great project. They lost McAllister or Robert Sanchez, but they got, for instance, João Pedro from Watford.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting game, this one, isn't it? Because Brighton and Hove Albion were so impressive last season. They really were incredible to watch. The football at times was insane and almost inexplicable. They were brilliant. But how do you continue to do that, you know? With European football coming up this season for the first time in the history of Brighton and Hove Albion, have they made significant enough improvements to their squad? You mentioned a couple of the players there. Dahoud, okay, perfectly acceptable player, but is he an upgrade on McAllister? I don't think so. João Pedro, great in the Championship for Watford, did nothing in the Premier League for Watford. James Milner, I think he's 37. You know, so there's always someone at Watford that I've never heard of at the start of the season who turns out to be world-class come the end of August, right? Julio Enciso last season is the obvious example, but there are others. So I do think that there is a real chance they're going to have another excellent season, but I have my doubts about Brighton. The extra workload, the expectation on Brighton now, which just wasn't there last season. We expect Brighton to win this game, and I will expect Brighton to win this game. but there'll be an expectation on Brighton to win every single game this season. They are not an unknown quantity now. And there's a lot of really strong teams in the Premier League this year, certainly in the top half. So that's going to be really, really interesting. That all being said, they're playing Luton Town. And look, it is a tremendous, tremendous achievement that Luton Town are in the Premier League. And I don't want that to be poo-pooed at the very first week of the season, right? It's brilliant, and I'm delighted for them, and it's going to be a great adventure. And they are going to win a home game in the first 4 or 5 games of the season at the Kenilworth Road, with that crazy oak stand and all that sort of stuff. And it's going to be an amazing story. But they are going to lose 25 games this year. Minimum 25 games. They are going to get, at max, 25 points. They're going to get mullered in a lot of games. Why? Because you cannot improve a squad from where it was to where it is in the time frame that allows if you're Luton Town. And I'm going through the squad. I'm looking at the signings. I know Ross Barkley, who I thought had retired, has been signed. Marvelous Nakamba was there last season and brought in on a permanent from Aston Villa. Tahit Chong has come in from Birmingham City. This is not a particularly impressive set of signings to go with a squad that did really, really well to get promoted anyway. So, look, we'll learn more about them. We'll see if Carlton Morris can score some goals in the Premier League as he did during the Championship season. But in this game, Brighton win, big win. How bold are you? I think Brighton are going to win this significantly. You can get a -2 goal handicap for over 3-1. So that's a 3-0 win or more on Brighton to win against the Championship team at home. That's pretty tasty. If you feel less bold, you get a -1 handicap at just under 2. I think that is also worth looking at. So Brighton win with a handicap.
So as Shimi is asking you, do we have a new Norwich?
Oh, I don't. Oh, that's such a great question. I'm gonna say nothing on that for the moment because they may surprise me. I have seen nothing of them in pre-season or in the write-ups of them or last season when they got promotion or looking at the squad on paper and knowing the majority of the players to say that they're not going to be Norwich. But look, we've been surprised before, right? Teams have come up and won the first 5 or 6 games at shock factor. So, but yeah.
Well, actually, one of the teams that surprised us last season is Fulham. They overperformed. They did a great season. They were coming as a newly promoted team last season, and I'm eager to see what they are doing to do again with Marco Silva on the bench. They've signed Raúl Jiménez. Mitrovic is on his way out, but he's, I think, still in the squad, and their first game is against Everton in Goodison Park. Everton suffering until the end last season, but they have a new manager. They don't have any more Frank Lampard. They have Son Dayech from the beginning, and they signed, for instance, Danjuma from Villarreal or Ashley Young, a well-known player in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the season for Everton, I don't see any change. I see no change from last season. They've got all these financial constraints that they've put upon themselves because of the amount of money Mashiri spent in the first season of this 3-year cycle. Plus, there is no more new money coming into the club. They're commercially not particularly successful. They had no European football for years, and of course, they're sinking their money quite rightly, I think, in the new stadium in the dock area. So, look. It's going to be a tough one for Everton. Again, they're going to survive. Again, they're going to stay up, and I expect them to finish around about 16th, having won 3 of their final 4 games of the season. The transfers are not impressive. Danjuma had a good spell at Bournemouth in the Championship. Beyond that, nothing really has happened for him in England. I know he had a good run out in Spain for a good 6 months or so before going inexplicably back to England, but I'm not impressed with that signing. And Ashley Young, you know, a legend really of the Premier League, you know, near 20 years in the competition with most of the clubs, you know, great career, won Serie A in recent times too, but I wouldn't be happy bringing Ashley Young in at this stage of his career. I don't really know what he's going to bring to Everton. It's an odd one.
Not young. He's not young anymore. That's for sure.
Very nice. Very nice. And also, it's Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Again, he's always injured. You can't rely on that. So big doubts about Everton. Don't know how they score a goal, and they're going to be, you know, get a corner and hope for the best. They're Sean Dyche. As for Fulham, you know, last season, they were nowhere near the relegation battle. Why? Because their start was phenomenal. Lots of wins in the opening 10, 12 games. Based on the back of Alexander Mitrovic, who has seen the almighty money out in Saudi Arabia being earned by players. And I wonder with people like Mitrovic if he knows something we don't. Have the knees gone? Have the hamstrings gone? Has the ankle gone? Is he thinking, I don't care about Fulham? Quite rightly, he's Serbian. Why would he, right? He's not going to live in West London when this is all over. Wants to go back to Serbia and, spend it there, quite rightly. So, he wants to make as much money as possible from what's left of his career. He wants to go to Saudi Arabia. He's going to try and force that move through. And if he is not playing, and he probably won't, Raul Jimenez, God bless him, I think he's finished. Certainly as a top-level player, can't believe someone in the Premier League has gone for him. And that's an issue. So I think both these teams will struggle this season, actually. I think both teams will struggle in this game. I just can't see where a goal is going to come. So this is the only game this weekend I'm going to look at here as a top tip. No goals. That's a 0-0 draw. Under 2.5 goals, you get around 2, but you can get no goals for around 11, 12 to 1. So it's a very, very bold pick. Look at all sorts of under. If you want to pick a winner, go under and pick one either way. There'll only be one goal in this if there is. But I think no goals, 0-0, nada, Nathan, nothing.
Nada de nada. 13 are the odds if you go for an under 0.5 goals, so for a goalless draw. A game to avoid watching, probably, this Everton Fulham, and probably also this Sheffield United Crystal Palace. Sheffield United back to the Premier League. Crystal Palace back with Roy Hodgson and a new era, not because Roy Hodgson is in charge. He's not a new manager in the Premier League, that's for sure, but without Wilfred Zaha, first season without him.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting, actually. But briefly on Sheffield United first, I think that, again, it's very much like the other promoted teams. There hasn't really been a big spender. No one's done in Nottingham Forest or Fulham this year. Fulham from a couple of years ago where they spent big money. Everyone has been quite cautious. And again, I don't really see a great deal of strength in this Sheffield United squad. And you add to that, they're actually selling players. They've come up and are selling players. They've just sold Sander Berge to Burnley, which is really, really interesting. And there's no one really of note coming in. Austin Trusty, the USA international from Arsenal. It's odd. I don't quite know what's going on there financially. I'll need to look into it more to find out what is going on. I'm expecting some business to happen before the end of the transfer window to replace those that have gone. But it's still, for those that remember Sheffield United from last time, it's still Chris Basham and John Fleck and Baldock and John Egan and Ollie Norwood in midfield. It's still a lot of that team that were diabolical last time they were in the Premier League. It's still Ollie McBurney up front. And their best player last season was Ndiaye, the striker, and he's gone to Marseille. So I don't know about Sheffield United. Something's happening there that I don't quite understand. And I don't think they're going to do particularly well this season or this game. For Palace, losing Wilfred Zaha is terrible. It's terrible for them because he has kept them in this league, frankly, for years and years and years and years. He has terrorized Premier League defenses. He gave Crystal Palace over a decade of incredible service, over 2 spells as well. And I think the only disappointment, if anyone cares, is that he's gone to Galatasaray and not maybe... I think he could have played for a Champions League club in England, a Europa League club in England. He could have played for a Champions League club in France or Germany or one of the major leagues. So to go to Turkey, it's a great experience for him and all that. But, the quality of the league overall is not the same. So I think that's a shame. But again, I'm asleep. I don't care. The current Crystal Palace, it's all about Abere Eze. That's what Crystal Palace are built around now. This guy is quality. He's so good. I'm really sorry about this, Palace fans, but Tottenham fans have had it with Harry Kane. West Ham fans had it with Declan Rice. You are going to have a story in the paper about Eze leaving Crystal Palace every single week this season. He is unbelievable. And I think if he can stay fit, which is the big if, I think he'll lead Crystal Palace to where they always finish, which is 12th. Tremendous skill, tremendous drive, tremendous versatility, scores good goals, scores the rubbish goals. I think he's absolutely brilliant. And if fit for this game, I think he will be the defining feature of it. So I've got a couple of tips here. Go for Palace, because I don't see much in Sheffield United. We're here to be surprised by them in the opening week of the season. But at the moment, don't see anything there. Go Palace win, which is good odds anyway. But if you combine that with Eze to score any time in this game, you can really make some serious money. So 2.5 on Crystal Palace, 3.5 Eze to score any time. If you want to bubble them together, you might get around 8, 9, 10. So I think that's a really, really interesting bet.
Tom, from the newly promoted teams, Burnley, Sheffield United, or Luton Town, which one you think is better?
I'd probably say Burnley, because Sheffield United have not brought anyone in and have lost their best striker. And Luton Town, it's inexplicable that a squad like that is in the Premier League. So, and I mean that with all respect, Luton fans, don't at me. It's amazing. I hope you stay up. I don't care. But looking at it on paper, I'd say Burnley just about, but it's not a strong three.
Well, the late kickoff on Saturday is a very interesting one. Newcastle, Aston Villa. We are going to see Champions League football in St. James's Park later this season. So this is going to be a key season for the Newcastle project, with Tonali as a great signing, although there are a lot of jokes if Tonali was happy in North England instead of North Italy. But let's see, together with Barnes, with Livramento, and also it's a very interesting season for Aston Villa, having Emery from the beginning, also some big signings, Pau Torres, Tielemans. What do you think about this very good game with very low odds, I would say, for Newcastle, actually?
You know what's interesting, actually, about Newcastle and that anecdote you told there is that we get that all the time, and understandably, why would you want to live in the northeast of England? I've been to Newcastle. It's amazing. And if you win on a Saturday night in Newcastle, you're about to have the best night of your life. I know you've been there as well. So
Jordi bomb, no?
You're going to have a Geordie bomb, a Greg sausage roll. No one's going to wear a coat, even in January. It's going to be amazing. So, you know, and it's actually...
Night Shepherds, I saw a lot.
And it's also it is actually a really beautiful city. You know, if you go there and you see the bridge over the Tyne, it's lovely. So, you know, I get it. But also, you're earning Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia money as well. So, you know, I think he'll be fine. Look, Newcastle last season was superb, right? And to make the Champions League, they hadn't quite spent, they've not bought a £100 million player, right? They bought a good selection of 30, 40 million pound players. Tonali lifts it up a little bit further, but they're doing it incrementally and intelligently. And they've learned from the mistakes of other billionaires and squillionaires that have come into football and kind of gone too hard, too fast. So they're built really well. Great achievement to make it. I think it's all right to start hating Newcastle now, everybody else. The improvements they made, Tonali is a vast upgrade in midfield on maybe like Longstaff, who played a lot of football last season. I think that Harvey Barnes is a real good option to have as opposed to Alonso Maximan, who's left the club, more of a goal scorer than a creator. You throw Isak and Wilson and Joe Linton, who is an outside bet for a potential player of the year, by the way. I think he has grown into an awesome footballer. So look out for Joe Linton this season, just bossing midfields for them. Bruno Guimaraes, obviously. Squad's amazing. Great positivity. Awful to go to St. James's Park as an away side with them in fine fettle and fine voice. Plus, there's still that disgrace of away fans sitting in the gods in the highest possible seats at St. James's Park. You're not meant to do that. But Newcastle say we can't put them anywhere else because it would require investment and we're not going to do it. So, try spinning that one, Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. So Newcastle, big favourites at home. But I tell you, the odds are really low on Newcastle to beat Aston Villa. And I personally just don't fancy it. I don't fancy a 1.7, 1.8, 2 to 1. And I can't quite pick out another bet because Aston Villa, I think, going to have a really good season. I think they'll win the Conference League, by the way. I said to you last season when the Hammers won it, the Premier League team should win the Conference League every year, right? I just think that. And I was saying that last year, not because my team were in it, because the Premier League squad are going to be the strongest one in it. And I think Aston Villa are, and I think they will. And of course, their manager has great pedigree in winning European competitions. You mentioned the signings they've made. I think they're all really, really impressive. Torres, Tielemans, Diaby, especially from Leverkusen. The German journos are really pumped about him. You add that to Ollie Watkins, who I think could have a 20-goal season. Lots to like about Aston Villa. And I think going into this game, if you're looking for something, I might go a bit wild here. Now, just Villa to win is around 4.5, or maybe even 5 to 1 by the time you get to the game. Solid defensively. Really, really elite manager, in my view, in Unai Emery. Can score on the break. And expectation at Newcastle. I'm not seeing value in Newcastle here. So if you feel like doing a crazy one this weekend, Villa to win, just Villa to win straight up at around about 4.5 to 5. That is my upset bet of the week. I like the look of Villa. Go double chance if you want. You'll still make good money there. But I just have a sneaky little feeling in my gut that Villa are going to go to St. James's Park, upset the odds, and really cause a stir in the first weekend of the season. Villa win.
Nice one. This is a very good game. Both teams to score is 1-7-8. By the way, last season we didn't see both teams to score because Newcastle won comfortably at St. James's Park and Aston Villa did the same in Birmingham. Corello is going for a Newcastle straight win, but there is no value, as Tom is telling you, and James is going for a draw. This is a very good game. Let's jump into the games we have on Sunday. Brentford Tottenham in West London. Brentford was very strong. Remember that last season playing at home. Still, they are the underdogs for this game. And I guess there is a huge question mark on Tottenham, on the manager, Ange Postecoglou.
Oh, very nice.
Australian guy, very difficult to pronounce. Let's see if Harry Kane is playing or if he's staying. In the meantime, Maddison, Kulusevski, Pedro Porro, Van den Ven, Vicario. Vicario, by the way, he's a great goalkeeper. Danny Fisichella was always telling us that he was one of the best in Serie A. But Tom, is this Tottenham better? Can do even worse than last season? This is important.
They're not better, to be frank. I'm interested in seeing the goalkeeper. I only know him from Danny's descriptions here from his time at Empoli. I've not seen much of Empoli. Sue me, I'm busy. So it's a bold move to bring him in as a replacement for the long-serving Hugo Lloris. So that's going to be really, really interesting to see him as number one goalkeeper, right? To see that. I assume that's what's going to happen. It would be bizarre otherwise. So I think Tottenham are really interesting this season because we don't know about Harry Kane. I'm going to assume he's staying because if he is playing on Sunday, he stays for the season. That's what Kane has put out there to the press. So if we get Harry Kane and James Maddison in the same team, that could be a really interesting 1-2. A great creative player. Hopefully at some point we'll get Rodrigo Bentancur back this season as well. Not back right now. That's a couple of players who can thread a ball through to the best striker, certainly in my view, English striker in the Premier League. And he's up there with Erling Haaland, in my opinion, Harry Kane. I think they're just as good. I think maybe Harry Kane is a more complete all-round player than Erling Haaland. But I mean, we can have that debate. But I think he's terrific, is the main thrust of it. So if he stays, I think Tottenham are going to have a good season. I don't see top four. I think there'll be a really interesting battle for Europa League, Conference League, top 7, top 8. I think Villa will be in it, Newcastle will be in it, Liverpool will be in it, Chelsea will be in it. I think Brighton, I think maybe West Ham, I think maybe one or two others. So, it's going to be a tough season, but I think a long one for Spurs. And whatever happens, this will be it for Harry Kane. If he doesn't go now, he'll go next summer. For Brentford, the question mark about them is no Ivan Toney. Suspended for his indiscretions last season or over previous seasons, suspended for the entirety of the first half of this campaign. So to not have him, huge blow. Huge blow, because as good as they have been, Brentford, they've won games at the back of his goals and Bumo's goals, to be fair as well, and just being able to outfight the opposition. They don't necessarily grow tactically, Brentford. They do the same thing over and over and over and over again. And in the end, David Raya going to Arsenal, who's the number one goalkeeper, anyone of particular quality. So they've got no Raya, no Toney, no particular improvements of great quality have come in. I wouldn't be worried about Brentford, but I do see more of a relegation battle than a top half of the season thing for them this campaign. In this particular game, can't pick Brentford because no Toney. I am going to take Tottenham to win, but the only thing I'm actually going to bet on here, frankly, is Harry Kane to score. So Harry Kane to score anytime is the only thing I can guarantee for you if he's still at the club, because of course he will, because he's Harry Kane. Harry Kane to score anytime is 4-1. Take it. That's that. You take that. Take a result if you like. I think Tottenham will win it, but that'll make you some money.
Well, Lyle is going for Tottenham under 1.5 goals. This one is very tricky, actually, this Brentford. Tottenham, let's see if Tottenham can do better than last season. Let's see if Chelsea can also do better than last season. And we have a great game at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea, Liverpool, very unlucky. Chelsea with Nkunku getting injured ahead of the Premier League debut. Another summer with a lot of spendings. We have a new manager, Mauricio Pochettino. Let's see his experience with the Blues. And we have Liverpool. According to the bookies, they are the third favorite to win the Premier League, but perhaps this season they can fight much more. They need the players. Last season they were very unlucky with the injuries, Tom, and they added Alexis McAllister and Dominic Szoboszlai to the roster.
Yeah, I mean, look, these two teams I think are going to have really good seasons. I'm not sure about third favourites for Liverpool, and I wonder where Chelsea would be in that list. Maybe it will change considering they're still doing wild transfer
Fifth,
business. Is it fifth?
fifth.
Maybe about right. But look, I mean, the trouble for Chelsea previews at this point is that I haven't got a clue, right? And Kunku, the attack was going to be built around him. And of course, as you mentioned, he is now injured. Really, really impressed with Nicholas Jackson during the preseason. Some great moments from him. But I just don't know who they've signed as a first teamer, who they've signed to loan out. I don't know anything. I just don't know because there's so many ins and outs at Chelsea. I don't even know who the number one goalkeeper is. Is Robert Sanchez coming as number one? Otherwise, why they spent £25 million on him? And if not, is Kepa the number one goalkeeper again at Chelsea? Haven't been bombed out a year and a half ago? There are so many questions that only the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season are going to answer for us. But what I will say is the squad is very strong. It is very strong all round. There is depth in each individual position, and away from the just utter joke that was the last 10 weeks of last season, Frank Lampard and all of that, they have brought in a really top coach. I don't know how good Pochettino is compared to the likes of Unai Emery, who I think is brilliant, and Arteta, Guardiola, the people he's competing against. But I do think a significant upgrade on part-time coach Frank Lampard. So at the moment, all I can say on Chelsea is we will see. I can't give you much on them at the moment because they can't give us much. I can give you a decent amount on Liverpool because I think they are still short. I think the McAllister signing is a good one, and it replaces the creativity issue behind what might well be a front three or a front two. That group is going to be Luis Diaz and Cody Gakpo and Darwin Nunez and Mo Salah. Wildly talented. Diogo Jota's been great in pre-season. Can they play together? I don't know. Don't look like it to me. Still issues in midfield. There's no one to replace Jordan Henderson and James Milner's experience. So there's still a couple of signings short, in my opinion, in midfield. Losing Fabinho as well. Who's going to play, frankly, in that midfield? I don't know. And defensively, Konate alongside Virgil van Dijk. Konate out a lot. Van Dijk waning in his powers. There are issues there. So on paper, I want to say Chelsea win. However, I'm still not confident enough in Chelsea to put money on them to win. What I do think is this one's going to be crazy. I think goals at both ends. I think a thriller. I think entertainment. I think goals in both halves. I go overall in the game, over 3.5 goals in the game. Personally, I'm not going to pick a winner. I'm going to say draw here, but both teams score in a fun, thrilling, entertaining start to this season. You get that around about 4-1. They may drift around if you bunch them together in a double. If you want to pick a winner, I'd probably just shave for Liverpool. But frankly, there's money to be made here. Go with your gut. Mine says draw, BTTS.
Well, how difficult is to pick a draw? We just can see the odds and they are very high. So it's very difficult to pick a draw. Actually, the last 3 games between these two teams ended in goalless draw, 0-0. In both games last season in the Premier League and also another one in the FA Cup. So let's see. We can see right now the last meetings. Actually, the last 4 also with the League Cup. So sometimes we expect a lot of goals and then we don't see any goals. And the 4th favorite to the title, according to the bookies, is Man United. But you will tell me, Tom, if we should trust much more Ten Hag's men or not. Their debut is against Wolverhampton. They just changed manager. As we all know, bye-bye, Lopetegui, we didn't like you a lot, and now you've been replaced because you didn't like the strategy of your team in the transfer window by Gary O'Neill. They got Mateus Cunha, 50 million for Mateus Cunha. He did absolutely nothing in Atletico de Madrid, and Man United, 75 for Højlund. The market is completely crazy. Mason Mount, Andre Onana. Well, do you think Man United are ready to fight for the title or not?
I think they're third favourites, certainly above Liverpool. I'm surprised at the moment that that's the order of things. I think Erik ten Hag proved last season he is a manager that can be trusted. I think they have allowed him to make bold decisions, replacing De Gea with Onana, the most obvious one. Maguire leaving means another defender will be coming in, so that's another Ten Hag player. Plus, I think injured this weekend and for a few weeks, but Rasmus Højlund up front. You know, it's a huge gamble on someone who's not played a great deal of football, but he fits the profile, and that's the person that Eric Ten Hag wants to build his offense around. So that's really interesting. They've put that much money. There's a Man United tax on these things, and quite rightly so, in this guy to build the attack around. So it's a shame he's not going to be available, it seems, this weekend. But look, I like the look of Manchester United. I really do. I think defensively, Martinez and Varane, very strong. I think in midfield, there's a lot of great options to make up for Casemiro's lack of movement. They've brought in players with energy around him. Mason Mount, the obvious example. I think that if Højlund is as good as Ten Hag thinks he is, the other players buzzing around, Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho and these other guys, there's going to be a lot of big wins for Manchester United this season. So I like what he's building. I like the manager. And I think there's a great chance that they're in the title race this season. I think third favourites for me is about right, but I think there is a great chance they are in the mix. As for Wolverhampton Wanderers, what a mess. What a mess. Once again, Lopetegui leaving a job on the eve of a tournament. Sorry to bring that up again, for personal reasons. Is Hierro still around? I don't know. But just, look, for Wolves, last season they stayed up because Lopetegui did do something you and I didn't expect. That was go quite offensive. And they picked up some really, really good wins at home against big-name teams. They haven't improved the squad during the summer. That's the reason Lopetegui is ostensibly gone. There's no money. Fosu and the owners have stopped pumping money in for whatever reason. Is it FFP, sustainability? Have they just run out of cash? I don't know. They certainly have not improved the squad. So it's a diminished squad with a good coach in Gary O'Neill, but he doesn't know these players. I think Wolves are going to be in a lot of trouble this season. I think bottom 5, bottom 6 finishers. They could be in relegation trouble. They might be lucky like a few others are. The promoted 3 aren't too clever. We'll see how that goes. But in this particular game, big win for Manchester United. Now, you can do big Man United win in all sorts of ways. I personally have just gone Man United to win to 0. That's without conceding. You get that quite comfortably at W money, 2, 2.5, 2.25. If you want to go handicap here, I wouldn't discourage you. -2 handicap, maybe even a -3 handicap. I think Man United, frankly, are going to win this game 4-0. So that's what I'll be going for. Variants of that. I've got a bit cautious in my top tip here at win to 0, but Asian handicap -3, I'm also going to go for that.
Think about it. Think about it. Shimi is going for Man United to win 2-0. Corello, Man United 2-0. For sure, no one is trusting this Wolverhampton. Well, Tom, this is it. All 10 games. So nice to see you in form. You've been training during the summer, taking shape. We are all ready to listen to your best bet for this weekend.
There are so many really good bets this weekend, so I tried to pick one you might actually make some money from. So I've actually gone Brighton because they're taking on Luton Town. And until I hear otherwise, that'll probably be my safest bet every single weekend, Luton to lose. Brighton to win, 1.3. I think that's pretty safe.
The Serbi in charge, by the way, the assistant is now training in France. So he's creating an academy, Pep Guardiola style, let's say. And the Cherby is making big things with Brighton and before in Italy. And your Aka?
Loads to do this weekend, but as ever, I'm going to pick a treble for you. Man City away from home against Burnley, so the odds are a bit better there. Arsenal to win as well, and I still really fancy Brighton. So if you want to, put Man U in there as well, but it doesn't change the odds very much. At double your money, City, Arsenal, Brighton.
And of course, if you want to win more, just take the offer from 1xBet with our promo code. You can see it here, Oddspedia YouTube, and you will have a welcome bonus of 130%. Not bad at all. Make some money up to 520 euros, dollars, or wherever you are based, depending on where you are based. This is the currency. Well, Tom, see you next week. Good luck to everyone. Thanks for being again with us some months later. And let's have fun. Bye-bye.